Welcome to a very special episode of FireWatch. I'm your host, Ronald Campbell. In this episode, we celebrate FireWatch's 10th anniversary. And joining me today to talk about the beginnings of FireWatch, where it's been, and where we're going to take it is its first host, Jan Parker. Jan, thanks for joining us at FireWatch again.
Thank you, Ronald. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so FireWatch, 10 years old as of this episode. Take us back to the beginning. How did all of this get started?
As the fire educator for the City of Raleigh Fire Department, I had been a frequent guest on the City Show with Jane Kirkpatrick. And I remember Karen, who is the manager here at Raleigh Television Network, calling me up and saying that, you know, could I come down and talk to her, that Jane had this great idea for the Raleigh Fire Department to have its own show. So I kind of figured I had probably been such a frequent visitor or guest on her show that she was ready for me to move on. But she said, you've got enough interest in subject matter that, you know, talking about all the wonderful things in the fire department, and so I was just thrilled because I thought it's so hard to reach out, and Raleigh was growing rapidly at the time, and this will be a new way to reach, not only to let the citizens know about their fire department, which we wanted people to be able to connect with us, but also this was a way to do fire prevention and fire safety as well.
Now, when you think about the name FireWatch, it's got several different meanings within the fire service. How did you decide to use that for the name for the show?
I know from the time we planned to start the show, I had just, you know, a few days to come up with something, and it was getting close, so I sent out an email to all the firefighters saying, you know, telling them about the show and that I was looking for a name. And I waited and waited, and I didn't get anything back. I didn't get a response, and so I sort of started thinking, well, what would work? What is this going to be? And that just came into my head that we could call it FireWatch. And I think it was appropriate. Since then, I have seen like a newsletter from another out-of-state department or something, and it was called FireWatch. But at the time, I didn't know of any type of media that use that, so I hope it's good. It's been around a while.
And we're still using it, you know. So, and one thing that I've noticed too with FireWatch being a 30-minute show every month, I don't know of many other fire departments in the country really that get this kind of exposure this regularly as we do through FireWatch. So, you know, I think that that's a pretty unique thing that Jane came up with, you know, 10 years ago, was to do something every month for the fire department.
And I agree, and can't say enough about Raleigh Television Network. The staff here was just awesome, and you know, it wasn't that I had a background at all, and they just made it so easy, and it just seemed like, you know, the perfect fit, because doing education and reaching, as the city was growing rapidly at that time, it was hard to get your information out, and this was just one more way to do that.
Right, and for a fire education office of one, and as it still is, it's a very effective way for us to get our message out to a lot of people, just since we do it by ourselves. I've always wondered, we work with the same director, producer, cameraman, jack of all trades. John Sams is the guy behind the camera who makes all of this happen. How is it that you came to work with John? Was he just assigned this project, or did he have some interest in it? How did that happen?
I just remember coming down to meet with Karen, the manager here, and she introduced me to John and said that he would be the one that I would be working with. And like I said, I've had the privilege of working with some of the other staff too, but John and I started out working together. We would find a date, which was always a challenge, and I'm sure you've experienced that too, because John had so many things that he was responsible for, so I would have to look at my calendar, and we would come together on dates, and then if we had a certain guest or location we wanted to be working with, we had to fit that in. So it was always a challenge. But like we just mentioned, John was so flexible, and you know, I had things that would come up sometimes and would have to change the schedule. At the time I had, my mom was ill for a period during that time, and so it was just so many things I can reflect back, and they became like family to me, just like the fire department, and that's just a really good feeling to have somebody that you can work with so well.
Well, and I know that with John, I can trust him to make whatever changes he needs to make when he does all the editing. I mean, really, and you probably did it the same way, is he does the bulk of the editing, and then he wants me to come down and take a look at it before he finishes it, so we can make sure that we have the right pictures, the right video at the right places, and that kind of thing. But really, I trust him to put out a good product, because he does month in and month out.
Absolutely.
I know that you and I, we talked about this off camera and in other situations, the challenges with doing this show every month. You mentioned the scheduling is always difficult to lock down John's schedule, my schedule, if we're interviewing somebody. Oh, yeah. What do you remember as being some challenges?
I guess for me it was just getting up in front of that camera, and I'd have it in my head. I knew what I wanted to say, but always getting it to flow and come out, because like I said, I didn't have a background in communications. Even though I could talk, I felt like sometimes John and this Raleigh Television Network staff were great coaches for me, and even Karen did a little workshop that was real helpful. So I would say my biggest challenge was getting comfortable in front of the camera.
I remember when I was interviewing for the job, one of the questions that you asked in the interview was if I had any experience doing anything like this, and I answered that I had not, and you asked if I minded doing something like this, because clearly it was important to both the fire department and to Raleigh Television Network that this program continue even after you retired from the fire department. And apparently I answered correctly, because I got the job, and here I am.
You did, and it was important to me, Ronald. I think, like I said, I had quite a passion for FireWatch, and it was something I think now I'm very proud. I'm honored to get to come back and be your guest today, but I also, that's one of the things I'm really proud that something that John and I, Raleigh Television Network, were able to start has continued, and I still hear great things. I get to see you often enough that I kind of keep up. You're kind enough to, you know, I get to keep up with the episodes, and I'm just very proud of it and appreciate all the interest and time that you've given to keep it going like this. Yeah,
and it is fun to do, really. We've made some changes to the way we've done things since you did it 5 years ago. We've also tried to keep up a little bit with the changing times. I know John was mentioned earlier that the first episode's on a scratchy VHS tape. You know, now we're using digital cameras, and we're putting it on social media outlets so people have greater access to it. So we have changed a little bit. Some changes probably for the better than others. But when you look back on the 5 years you did FireWatch, because you did it for 5 years, I've done it now for 5 years. Take us back to that very first episode, 10 years ago now. How did you come up with your topic for that month? I think you did a special 1-year anniversary for September 11th. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we started out doing a little opening over at Fire Station 1, and we had the fire engines coming out of the station, and we were trying to sort of balance it. We wanted it to have a fire safety prevention message, but we also wanted to showcase the Raleigh Fire Department and show the firefighters and really let the public, the citizens of Raleigh, get to know them better. So I just remember, like you said, it was unfortunately the time of 9/11, and we talked to Chief Fowler and the Fire Marshal, Chief Stanford, and they had both actually been to Ground Zero. They went to take the big check from the fundraiser we did here locally in the heart of Carolina. And I just remember being really excited that they were willing to come on the show and help me out to get it started. And first safety tip I did was about smoke alarms, which I think is the most important thing that any family can do, is to be sure they have their family protected with working smoke alarms.
All right, well, let's watch some of these clips.
Okay. Now we're over at the fire chief's office, and we've got the chance to speak with Chief Earl Fowler this morning. Chief Fowler, we've been talking to the viewers about how excited we are about our new show, FireWatch, and we were wondering if you would like to give us a few thoughts and suggestions and ideas that you have for the success of our new show.
Well, I think there's several reasons that I think this show can be a success, and one is the ability to disseminate information about the fire department. A lot of people have this perception that, you know, it's the fire department and all they do is fight fires, but it'll be an opportunity to disseminate the information on the many programs and projects and activities that the fire department is involved in.
The next question I wanted to ask you relates to 9/11. I know the one-year anniversary is close by, and you actually traveled to New York and had the opportunity to see Ground Zero just a few weeks after the tragedy occurred. And many reporters are referring to that day as the day that changed America. How do you feel that it changed our fire department right here in Raleigh?
Well, I think I see it as two things that have happened. One is the reality of the situation, of the event, and the impact that it's had on us is that we were, prior to September the 11th, preparing for events like this. We had been given the grants for the weapons of mass destruction. So it was an unknown, an uncertainty that we were preparing for, but when this event occurred, there was the sense, the overwhelming sense that this really has happened, and the possibility of it occurring elsewhere was heightened. The second thing that I think really the public's awareness of the fire department, of what they do, their response to the courageous act of the firefighters in New York and in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, and what they did on those dates has certainly been a heightened public awareness of the fire departments and what not only we do, but other fire departments, EMS, and police departments.
We're now in the Fire Prevention Office, and we're going to be talking with Assistant Chief Larry Stanford. Chief Stanford serves as our City of Raleigh Fire Marshal, and he wears many hats in this position. With the anniversary of 9/11, the one-year anniversary quickly approaching, I know you had the opportunity, you traveled up with a team of city officials to deliver the check shortly, just a few days after that horrible tragedy, and you actually visited Ground Zero. Can you share some of your thoughts and reflections on that?
Yes, Jan, I had some mixed thoughts about the trip. I, along with countless thousands of others, would just grab at the chance to be there, to lend our support, to do whatever we could to lend a helping hand to the brothers and sisters in need there in that great city. But at the same time, I realized that they had a great work ahead of them, you know, a lot of work, and they didn't need to be bothered, I say bothered by me coming, you know, to be a visitor and have to take out the time from their busy schedule to take us around. But I was glad to be there, you know, and you know, just arriving into the city and seeing the people on the side and noticing that we were firefighters, and the love and affection that they had and that they showed for us, and the cheers and that they had as we were coming in the city.
This month's fire safety tip is install and maintain smoke alarms. It's really quite easy. All you need is a safety ladder, a screwdriver, a drill, makes the job a little easier. And remember, you need at least one smoke alarm on each level of your home. If you use the battery type, you need to be sure that you test the smoke alarm at least once a month, change the battery once a year, and remember that a smoke alarm needs to be replaced every 10 years. Remember, heat and smoke rise, so you want to install the smoke alarm on the ceiling, and if necessary, to install it on the wall at least 4 inches, but no more than 10 inches below the ceiling. Stay away from the corners, and remember, we want the first traces of smoke to be detected, so put it towards the center of the room and stay away from doors or drafts. that might cause the smoke to be removed. Also, remember that your chances of survival are increased by 50% when you install and maintain a working smoke alarm. It really does save lives.
Well, so we just watched some clips from the first episode, and I know throughout the interview you've talked about some of the other things that you enjoy doing. In the 5 years that I've done the show, I think for me, my favorite segment was the one where we interviewed Bonnie Woodruff. Bonnie lost her son, Ben, in a fraternity house fire at UNC at the same time I was in school at Carolina. So that interview spoke to me as a graduate of Carolina, because I was there at the time.
Right.
And as a fire professional, and from her as a mother, she really opened up her home and her story to us. And I wanted to go back and take a look at that segment for my quote-unquote favorite segment in FireWatch. Joining me today to talk about her recent installation of a residential fire sprinkler system is Bonnie Woodruff. Bonnie, thanks for joining us on FireWatch.
You're welcome.
So, residential sprinklers, you've got one in your home, but before we talk about the sprinklers here in your home, tell us a little bit about why you decided to put one in your home.
Well, I am a mother who lost a son in a fire at the University of North Carolina in May 1996. And after the fire, we were told by Fire Chief Dan Jones that Ben, my son, and the 4 others that died in that fire would still be alive if there had been fire sprinklers. There were functioning fire alarms, but I have learned through all this that, fire alarms don't give you the time, give time to escape. So I sort of became passionate about telling others about fire sprinklers, because I figured that if fire sprinklers could have saved my son's life, then they could save other lives. And that's how I became an advocate for fire sprinklers.
So you said that your son, Ben, died at the fire in Chapel Hill in 1996. Now, he was in a fraternity house, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the fraternity house, you said it wasn't a sprinkler building. What happened that day?
There was a parent-sponsored graduation party the night before, and it was held at the Phi Gam house, and it was for all the fraternities and sororities. Fraternities, I think, maybe not sororities. And it was a hot evening, so all the windows were open in the house. They didn't have central air. There were some air conditioning units, but a lot of the windows were open. The parents had rented these huge fans to keep the air circulating, and they were down in the basement. And my understanding is that there was a northwest wind that came in that night, and with the fans and the windows open, and the house had a central stairway, so it was like a chimney. And the fire started in the basement early in the morning from some carelessly discarded smoking materials. And it went up the central stairwell fairly quickly. And my son was on the 2nd floor. There were people sleeping on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. Most school was over, so most everyone had moved back home. Ben had moved back home. But he went back that night because some of his fraternity brothers were graduating, and the girl that he was seeing, her brother was graduating, so he went back and was actually going to spend the night there and then meet us the next morning, which was Mother's Day, at church. And anyway, the fire, all the students that were on the 2nd floor where Ben was, only one survived, and he heard the fire alarm and ran, and he actually got out, but the other 4, Ben and 4 others, died that day on the 2nd floor. 3 students jumped from the 3rd floor and were physically injured, but they survived the fire.
So following the tragedy, Bonnie, I know there was the natural grieving process. Did you do anything to sort of channel that grief to do some good?
Well, at first, I just would be present because I was too grief-stricken to speak. But Dan Jones had asked my husband and myself to go to the city council meeting that was that fall, and a resolution was passed that all the fraternities and sororities had to be sprinklered within 5 years. And in 2001, they had all complied with that ordinance. And at that point, I realized during that time that we were, you know, getting in before 2001, I realized that if, like I had said earlier, if sprinklers could have saved Ben, then they could save others. And so I became an advocate. I would go to universities up and down the East Coast. I would go wherever I was asked and speak to administrators and testify before subcommittees of, you know, legislatures and things. And things did get changed slowly. But I knew that there were others out there doing the same thing I was doing. But we sort of needed a vehicle to channel us and get us together. And in 2007, the National Fire Sprinkler Association did just that. They brought 6 of us together out in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a forum. And from that forum, Common Voices was formed. And I'm a member of Common Voices. There are 6 of us who have all been affected by fire, either having lost someone in a fire or been burned themselves, and as a survivor. And we are called Common Voices because we feel like together and putting our voices together that we can make much more of an impact to help prevent other future fire deaths.
And while recognition and awards are nice for Common Voices to receive, there's something greater that drives you to do all this, isn't it?
Yes, Ron, I think I said it earlier and I'll say it again. You know, I'm a mother who lost a son in a fire, and if that's not enough to drive someone, I don't know what is. And I started doing it in memory and in honor of Ben, but in the process, it has given me so much more than what I ever expected. Every time I tell my story, it softens the edges a little bit. My daughter, who is obviously the love of my life now, and my 3 grandchildren, once said to me, "Mom, why do you do this? Isn't it hard? I mean, how can you put yourself out there?" And I just said to her, "Molly, how can I not? If I can save someone else, how can I not tell my story and put myself out there?" So that's why I do it. I want to save other lives, and also it just helps soften the pain for me.
Well, Bonnie, I appreciate you having us in your home today and telling us your story and letting us take a look at your sprinkler system. And I think that the work you and Common Voices do has saved lives. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much, Ron, for your work also.
So Jan, now that we've looked back a little bit at the past 10 years of FireWatch, when you retired 5 years ago, you know, you left the show so that way, you know, hopefully it would keep going. Are you pleased, I guess, with how it's played out over the past 5 to 10 years?
Absolutely, Ronald. I couldn't be prouder, and I think, just like I said, you've got the passion and you've just taken it and, you know, progressed, because like you said, things do change. They need to change. But I can honestly say that I believe what makes a difference and what really makes the greatest impact is to use the teachable moment, to have a story. I think there's just a fascination. I know when I do a presentation, what people are going to remember is the stories, the fact that the personal side has more of an impact. And I think that's what you've done so well, is find ways to look at the situation, look at the technical aspect, but then whether it was an interview with a firefighter or a citizen, but that's had the greatest impact, and I think that's what's so important.
We appreciate it. And one thing I would like to see us move forward on as we keep doing FireWatch, we have no plans to stop anytime soon. So as we move forward with it, hopefully there are citizens or even firefighters out there who have stories that they would like to share. It's hard knowing where those stories are. And if anybody has been impacted by the fire department in a positive way, we help them somehow, or they have a story that they would like to share with the community at large. You know, we'd love for them to reach out to us here at FireWatch and let us know that, because we're glad to come to them and talk to them, because you're right, it is those personal stories that really speak to a crowd. And that, for me, that's one reason why Bonnie's story is so powerful, because it is very personal and it really does speak to a lot of people. So we would love to have more segments on FireWatch like hers.
And Bonnie's story, it did several things. It was the personal side, the campus message to parents and students about how important it is to make fire safety your own personal responsibility, and also it was all about sprinklers. in the Woodruff home. And that's where we go. You know, that's just what we really need to be hearing about. That is the answer. And you were able to combine all of those into one, and I think that's what made that such a special episode.
Well, I appreciate it.
And don't forget to keep up those recipes, your firehouse cooking, because the first one I ever did was a banana pudding with I think it was Captain Strayhorn at Fire Station 12, and he's retired now. But you know, I was going to make banana pudding the other day, and I couldn't remember that recipe. So you need to get back and do some.
Yeah, we have done it. We do need to find some more fire department cooks who are willing to be on camera and share some of their recipes with us. We'd love to do more of those as well, because at the end of the segment, there's always food to eat. So we need to do a little bit more of those. I do appreciate you coming in today and talking to us about, you know, the 10 years of FireWatch, how it got started, where it's been, where it's going to go. I think that you and the folks here at Raleigh Television Network really did create something that has reached a lot of people in the Raleigh area over the past 10 years. And for that, we thank you, and hopefully we can keep doing it for years to come.
Well, thank you, Ronald. And not only the local citizens and out into the county, but beyond, because like you said, with the technology now and being able to do the social media, I know I work all over the state, and I hear remarks and good feedback that other people have benefited from your show as well. So
that's
carry on, and I guess the next time I'll see you maybe is the Fireman's Ball.
I hope so.
Look forward to it.
Thanks, Jan. We'll see you soon. Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner, and the theme this year is Have Two Ways Out. So it's important that you and your family develop a home escape plan, both for your home and really for everywhere that you go. You need to make sure that you know 2 ways out. To celebrate Fire Prevention Week this year, the Raleigh Fire Department has lots of activities planned. On Sunday, October 7th, from 2 to 4 p.m., all of our fire stations will be open for open houses. On Tuesday, October 9th, the fire department will be set up at the Chick-fil-A at Capitol Crossing from 5:30 to 7:30. You can bring an old smoke alarm battery and we'll give you a new one. And on Thursday, October 11th, Friday the 12th, and Saturday the 13th, we will be at Crouchy Valley Mall in the promotional court, so come on out and see us then. Also know that the Raleigh Fire Museum will be open on Saturday, October 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We hope that you can join us at one of our many events during Fire Prevention Week.